Since last week, I'm now joined on the line by Senior Researcher for Crime and Justice at the Institute for Security Studies, Dr. Johan Burger. Good morning to you, Dr. Burger. I guess incidents like this don't paint a good picture of the country internationally.
Yeah, good morning. No, absolutely right. I think, you know, what this tends to portray about South Africa is that we are completely unstable, we are crime-ridden, we are, you know, corrupt, all the kinds of things that one would not want to be seen as is what South Africa now looks like, I think, to the outside world.
Dr. Burger, do you think we blow it out of proportion? I mean, looking at the incidents holistically, you look at other parts of the world and the violence that happens there, do we blow it out of proportion?
No, I don't think we are blowing this out of proportion. I think the problem with South Africa is that these things tend to repeat itself every year. At times it becomes worse, it simmers down for a while, and then it picks up again. So, and you know, you cannot look at these incidents, you know, some describe this as xenophobic, others as criminal, but you cannot see this in isolation from all the other things that are happening. I mean, if you look at the service delivery protests, these have increased over the last 4 to 5 years, and I'm speaking specifically about those that have become violent. Those have increased by about 90% in the short space of 4 to 5 years. So I think what people see when they look at South Africa, when they look at news bulletins and at you know, the news just generally, they see people in the streets, unhappy people, angry people, people protesting, people burning stuff, people destroying stuff, and now we just add this kind of looting and destruction of property. So I think, you know, it's not drawing this out of proportion. It is showing the reality of South Africa. And clearly, you know, I think we are experiencing a huge crisis in terms of internal control, internal satisfaction in terms of people's lives, in terms of employment, poverty issues, and so on. So on top of this, we see instability, political instability. So these clearly are things that should be a concern to our politicians, to our government, and it should need much more focused attention.
Dr. Burger, I also would like to get your opinions on the latest issues with regards to the Hawks and the SIU. Obviously, that Special Investigating Unit head Vasoni resignation yesterday, as well as the controversy around Anwar Dramat and his suspension from the Hawks. This also does not paint a good picture of our investigating capabilities in the country.
Yes, no, again, you know, you're absolutely right. I think this is why I'm saying you cannot look at any of these things in isolation. I think the general impression that people looking from the outside at South Africa must get is this is a country that is really, as someone said before, is at war with itself. I mean, you look at corruption. Clearly, corruption is one of the biggest challenges facing this country. I mean, we know that there are corruption in many other places, but there are also many other places where there's very little or very low levels of corruption, and that is where we need to be. All our politicians, you know, speech after speech, they talk about the need to fight corruption, but we do not see those words coming to fruition in terms of political will, in terms of support to these institutions. In fact, you know, we tend to see quite the opposite. Vasoni now indicates that he leaves because of personal reasons, and we have to believe him. But this just adds to the general instability that we see with anti-corruption units and institutions that are involved in the fight against corruption, and so on. And, you know, you look at the public protector, you look at attempts to discredit her and to almost sort of nullify the existence of the office of the public protector. You look at the Hawks, and clearly there is political interference in terms of the Hawks. So you look at the general picture in terms of our commitment and the political will to fight corruption, and then these things that are happening does not support the things that politicians promise us in terms of their commitment to fight corruption.
Obviously, with the State of the Nation address less than a month away, do you expect the President to address some of these?
Well, you know, the President, to be quite frank, you know, talks about corruption all the time, but he tends to be in the front line of those who fails to support those institutions, and in fact, quite the contrary. He tends to show that, you know, the least of the political leadership support for these institutions. So clearly, with all due respect to our President, he is perhaps one of those most guilty of talking about corruption, but failing to put those words into practice in terms of the fight against corruption.
Dr. Burger, appreciate your time this morning. Dr. Johan Burger, senior researcher at the Crime and Justice Project there at the Institute for Security Studies.